It started like someone had dropped a match in a puddle of gasoline. You could smell it before you even knew what was happening. 81,000 people packed into the MetLife Stadium, mouths half open, blinking into the skyline of a World Tournament final, where the heavyweights had already been picked. Chelsea, the misfit opera, this cast of characters who still feel like strangers wearing matching shirts, up against Paris Saint-Germain, that over-sculpted monument to modern football perfection. The European champions. The team that just embarrassed Real Madrid 4-0 like it was a training drill. The team built to win the whole thing. But it turns out Chelsea didn't read the script. Or they did, and they set it on fire. Let's rewind to the first half, the 45 minutes when something rare happened. Chelsea played with clarity. I mean, actual humming, poetic clarity. They weren't improvising. They weren't second-guessing. They were playing like they knew. From the whistle, there was this. Thrum, like they could feel the blood in PSG's veins and knew where to strike. And it was Cole Palmer with the scalpel. 22 minutes in, Malo Gusto finds space where there shouldn't be any, drifts behind Nuno Mendes like a rumor, slides it into Palmer, who does what he does best. Slow heartbeat, cold finish, bottom left corner. Gianluigi Donnarumma stretches, but it's ceremonial. 1-0. Cue the noise. Now listen, you do think PSG would was something appropriate for a world champion side. Some authority, some punch. And they did, technically. They knocked. Desiree Doué forced a good save out of Robert Sanchez not long after the opener. But the difference was Chelsea didn't flinch. No panic. Just a calm kind of violence. 8 minutes later, Palmer again. This time it's Levi Colwill with the perfect ball in transition, and Palmer glides into the exact same space and scores the exact same goal, like he's rerunning a drill. If the first one was a spark, the second was a detonation. 2-0. And Donnarumma's on his knees staring into the turf like it personally betrayed him. That moment in the 34th minute when Moises Caicedo got booked, even that felt like part of the tempo. Caicedo was playing like a man possessed. Yellow card? Who cares? Chelsea had found the edge and decided to lean all the way in. And then came the third goal. If the first two were scalpel work, this one was theater. A dagger with a bow on it. 42nd minute. Palmer, now full playmaker mode, sees Joao Pedro cutting through space like he's allergic to defenders. Palmer threads the ball through, and Pedro, this new face with ice in his veins, just lifts it over Donnarumma with the nonchalance of a man ordering dessert. 3-0. In that moment, you could feel the floor collapse under PSG. You could almost hear the silence from the Parisian bench. And if you zoomed in, I swear you'd see Luis Enrique's jaw twitch. He'd just watched his defense, the same one that hadn't conceded more than a goal in 6 straight matches, get torn apart like wet paper. And PSG had chances. They really did. Joao Neves had a header saved. Doué came close. Dembélé tried to swing momentum. But Sanchez, of all people, was in full world-class mode, like he'd finally been handed a match that mattered and decided to audition for sainthood. The first half ended with 6 minutes of added time. Not because of drama, just disbelief. Just the kind of half where the referee knows the world is watching and wants to make sure nobody missed the miracle. 3-0 at the break. And the shocking thing? It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't smash and grab. Chelsea weren't just leading. They were dictating. Against the best team on the planet, they were doing what PSG usually do to others. Press high, dominate the tempo, exploit weakness, bury the opponent. And the body language said it all. Palmer walking off like he'd just finished a training session. Pedro with a smirk, like this whole thing was going according to plan. Meanwhile, PSG walked off like they had to explain something very disappointing to a very rich father. You ever see a school play where the understudy outshines the star, and the audience collectively realizes it's witnessing something rare? That was Chelsea in that first half, and maybe it was only 45 minutes. But sometimes 45 minutes are enough to change what people think a team is. And then the lights came up on the second half. And for a second, it felt like maybe, just maybe, PSG would show their teeth. I mean, they had to, right? They're the big bad wolves of European football. They'd been humiliated. Surely there'd be some retaliation. A new energy, fire in the belly, something. There wasn't. Instead, what we got was a long, slow, desperate search for dignity. PSG came out with urgency. Yes, Kvaratskhelia had to go early. Robert Sanchez parried it like he was bored. Then Dembele, we'll talk about him later, carved out a chance down the center of the box and forced another save. It was quick, it was low, and it was clean. Sanchez had hands like flypaper all night. But here's what started to happen. The harder PSG tried to drag themselves back in, the more exposed they became. It was like they were walking into a headwind made of regret. Every pass was a little off. Every decision half a beat late. You know those nightmares where you try to run but your legs won't move? That's what this half looked like for them. And Chelsea? Chelsea were just managing it, like a poker player sitting on 3 aces and bluffing a 4th. They didn't need more goals. They didn't even want more goals. They wanted to embarrass PSG quietly, without raising their voice. And that's harder to watch, honestly. A slow suffocation. No high press, no final flourish. Just professional control. 60 minutes in, Enzo Fernandez had to come off. He'd been good, calm, sharp, but the injury wasn't worth the risk. In comes Andre Santos, young, enthusiastic, and completely unbothered by the scale of the match. Minutes later, Joao Pedro leaves the stage to applause, replaced by Liam Delap, who instantly gives Donnarumma more problems than PSG gave Sanchez in the whole half. And Donnarumma was working. 67th minute, Delap hits a rocket from outside the box, forces another save. Then again in the 79th, another shot, another parry. The guy was practically sponsored by panic at that point. Chelsea weren't pushing for a 4th. They were just reminding everyone they could. What's worse for PSG is they had moments, glimpses. Vitinha's attempt from distance forced yet another save. Nuno Mendes tried to get something going, but the final ball? Garbage. Barcola came on, did his bit, but it felt like whistling into a hurricane. By the time Gonzalo Ramos replaced Achraf Hakimi, you could tell even Luis Enrique was out of ideas. He was just rotating pieces on a broken chessboard. And then the hair pull happened. 85th minute. Marc Cucurella, who plays every match like he's got a personal vendetta against gravity, gets his locks yanked by Joao Neves. Not just a tug, a full-on scalp grab. The kind of move that says, I have run out of football. The referee went to the monitor, and for once, video assistant referee made itself useful. Red card. Off you go, Joao. Enjoy the bench. Maybe reflect on what it means to be a professional. The atmosphere soured after that. Not in the crowd. Oh no, the Chelsea fans were doing laps of the stadium in spirit, but down on the pitch. PSG's frustration turned to aggression. Mendes hacked someone down. Dembele got booked. Luis Enrique's face was a cocktail of rage and resignation, and then came the real cherry on the sundae. Final whistle. Chelsea, the club that barely survived its own group stage, were crowned champions. PSG, the supposed titans, were left staring at a scoreboard like it was written in another language. And then Luis Enrique, this man whose whole vibe is cool professor, who's also a black belt, completely lost the plot. He went for Joao Pedro. Not verbally, physically. Had to be pulled back by Presnel Kimpembe, who wasn't even playing. That's where PSG ended the night, being restrained from fighting the teenager who just scored against them. And all the while, Chelsea players stayed on the pitch, grinning, throwing on their celebratory shirts, personalized, as if they knew. As if this was destiny, not surprise. Let me tell you something about football. Is only part of the story. The scoreboard here said 3-0, but the tone? The mood? It said more. It said PSG were supposed to win but never showed up. It said Chelsea, this weird, chaotic, mismatched group of promising kids and question marks, just found something they didn't know they had. Identity. There was no miracle comeback, no last-gasp drama, no twist. Just a slow, methodical unraveling of the European champions under the New Jersey lights. And it wasn't over yet. So now that the dust has settled, or rather, now that PSG have been swept into a neat little pile in the corner of MetLife Stadium, let's talk about these two teams. Because this match wasn't just a story about a scoreline. It was a study in contrast, a personality test, a therapy session with goals. Let's start with PSG, because why not linger on a tragedy? Here's the thing about Paris Saint-Germain. They are a club so polished, so over-engineered, that when the slightest crack appears, the whole facade trembles. On paper, this team should be terrifying. They've got Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Neves, Hakimi, players who could start for basically any team on the planet. They crushed Real Madrid 4-0 just days ago, for heaven's sake. And yet, in this final, they played like a jazz band that forgot how to count. The passes? Misjudged. The movement? Static. The spirit? Somewhere on a plane back to Paris. There's a certain irony to watching PSG, a team famed for being surgical and ruthless, become the ones on the operating table. Chelsea laid them out with cold efficiency, and PSG had no idea how to respond. You could see the fear creep in, and then the panic, and eventually the apathy. The worst sin in football is to stop caring mid-match, and by the 75th minute, it felt like PSG were running on fumes and ego. Luis Enrique has some explaining to do. Not just about the football, but about the incident. You know, the part where he tried to put Joao Pedro in a chokehold like this was WrestleMania. I mean, come on, that's not passion. That's not defending your team. That's losing the plot in front of 81,000 people and a sitting president. When the manager needs to be separated from a teenager who just cooked his team, you know the iceberg has hit the ship. And on the other side, Chelsea. Chelsea. This bizarre mosaic of potential, trauma, and hope. A team so often mocked for its lack of cohesion, its transfer madness, its revolving door of managers and philosophies. And yet, when it mattered most, when they were up against the best team in the tournament, they clicked. And I mean clicked. Like a lock falling open. Enzo Maresca deserves some real credit. He took this wonky engine and tuned it until it purred. It wasn't just tactics, it was attitude. These players weren't just playing for a title. They were playing for each other. For the shirt. For every sarcastic headline that's followed this club around since they became a meme in the transfer market. You had Malo Gusto bossing the right side, like he was Benjamin Pavard in disguise. You had Levi Colwill stepping up like he was tired of being called promising and wanted to be called present. And Palmer, well, we'll get to him in the next bit. But make no mistake, this wasn't a smash-and-grab job. This wasn't a lucky punch. This was a dismantling. And what does it mean? It means PSG, with all their wealth and pedigree and aura, are still fragile. They still break. And Chelsea somehow are finding form and function right when nobody expects them to. This win won't erase the chaos of the last 18 months, but it might just mark the start of something new, something terrifying, in the good way. And look, this was the new Club World Cup. 32 teams. A gauntlet. Chelsea didn't even top their group. They came in through the back door and left with the whole house. Benfica in extra time, Fluminense in the semis. And now this. A final where they didn't just beat PSG, they redefined themselves in front of the football world. There are wins, and then there are announcements. This was the latter. But to really understand how this game carved itself into memory, we've got to talk about the individuals. Because this wasn't just a team performance, it was a night when certain players turned into something more. And that's where we go next. Let's talk about the real drama. The people. The performances. The footballers who turned this final into an opera. Because systems are cute, and tactics matter, sure. But matches like this? They're decided by the ghosts and gods wearing squad numbers. Let's begin with the man of the hour, Cole Palmer. I've been watching football a long time, and I'm telling you, some players just have it. That thing. That preternatural calm. That uncoached awareness. That refusal to rush anything, even time itself. Palmer was ridiculous. Not just good. Not just effective. Ridiculous. He looked like he was playing the game on a 6-second delay, like everyone else was stuck in buffering mode. His first goal was surgical, a low left-footed shot tucked into the bottom left. Clean, no dramatics, just humiliation with finesse. The second? Same foot, same corner, same heartbreak. The audacity to score 2 identical goals in the same final? That's not coincidence. That's a footballer writing his signature. And the assist. Don't get me started. That ball to Joao Pedro. Weight. Timing, direction, perfection. You know when a dog hears a high-pitched whistle and tilts its head like, what did I just hear? That's what PSG's defense looked like when Palmer slipped that pass through. You could hear the confusion. Palmer is 23, and he's making hardened veterans look like part-time interns. If he has a ceiling, it's somewhere past the ozone layer. But let's not stop there. Joao Pedro. Sweet heavens, what a signing. This kid has swagger. He chipped Donnarumma like he was scoring in a youth tournament. It was elegant, it was mean, it was hilarious. The goal itself was art, but the real magic was in the intent. He meant it. He saw the keeper's position, calculated the geometry in half a blink, and executed like a born killer. You don't fake that. You don't teach that. That's soul-level instinct. And then you've got the defenders, who played like they were still mad about something that happened in 2006. Colwill was a beast. Picked up a yellow, sure, but even that felt like a flex. Like he wanted to remind PSG he wasn't going anywhere. His long ball to Palmer for the second goal was a chef's kiss of vision and daring. Malo Gusto? Just a demon. Up and down that right flank like he had his own gravitational field. Made Nuno Mendes look like he was trying to run in sand. The assist for the first goal was sharp, but it was his defending that sang. Tenacious, tidy, relentless. Robert Sanchez, though, my word. I don't know what he had for breakfast, but I'm assuming it was blessed by the Pope. He made 7 saves, each more important than the last. From close range, from distance, headers, volleys, didn't matter. He was a wall with arms. You want to talk about redemption arcs? This guy might have just written the pilot episode. Even the substitutions made noise. Andre Santos stepped in and didn't miss a beat. Liam Delap nearly scored. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall came on like he'd been rehearsing this match in his sleep. Now let's swing the microscope over to PSG. Do we have to? Yes. Unfortunately. Joao Neves, red card. Not just red, but stupid red. Hair pulling? Are we serious? You're losing a final and your plan is to reenact a schoolyard fight? It's not just reckless. It's immature. He should be embarrassed. Donnarumma? He tried. He really did. 3 goals conceded, but without him it could have been 5 or 6. He made some crucial saves in the second half, especially against Delap. But that third goal, the chip, you could see it in his face. That's the look of a goalkeeper who wants to sink into the turf and live there forever. And then there's Dembele, the human enigma. So much talent, and yet so little clarity. He had flashes. A quick shot here, a dangerous run there. But in this kind of match, flashes aren't enough. You need fire, and he was just flickering. Hakimi, anonymous. Vitinha tried to pull strings but got tangled. Kvaratskhelia, a shadow. And the bench didn't change the script, just added footnotes to a sad novella. The PSG midfield never found its feet. It played like it was wearing shoes 2 sizes too big. No composure, no bite, just people running through the motions, hoping for divine intervention that never came. So what we got, when you boil it down, was a Chelsea performance for the scrapbook, for the legends, and a PSG performance for the inbox, specifically the one labeled internal review. Palmer stood above everyone. Pedro danced with destiny. Sanchez guarded the gates. And PSG? They got PSG'd. This has been Across the Pitch. Over and out.